bhaktiya hoite avidya vinasajate. Vede gaitara charito, Vede gaitara charito, Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanara Bandhu. Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanara Bandhu. Lokana lokera jivana, Lokana lokera jivana, Srila Prabhupada lokera jivana, Srila Prabhupada lokera jivana. Prabhu kono doya Deo more pada chaya. Prabhu kono doya Deo more pada chaya. Prabhu koro doya deo more pada chaya. Prabhu koro doya deo more pada chaya. He Veda Gusutri Bhuvana, He Veda Gusutri Bhuvana, Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana, Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Yasomati Nandana Vrajavara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nandana Vrajavara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kaliyadamana Vidana Kaliyadamana Vidana Amala Harinama Miya Vilasa Amala Harinama Miya Vilasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Vora Vamsi Vadana Suvasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Vora Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Vora Vamsi Vadana Suvasa Braja Jana Palana Surakula Nasana Braja Jana Palana Surakula Nasana Nanda Godanara Koala Nanda Godanara Koala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Damuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Rasarasika Kripamoya Damuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Rasarasika Kripamoya Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Bhakati Vinoda Saya Bhakati Vinoda Saya Yasomati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Randana Gana Yasomati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Randana Gana
Sakala samane nijamane sprihahina yogyata vichare kichu nahi pai tomara karuna sara amito kanga Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Trinapekha Atihina Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, Text 29. I'll do 30 as well. Tvamishise jagatastushascha pranena mukhyena pati prajanam Chittasya chitter mana indriyanam patir mahan bhuta gunashayeshaha Tvamishise jagatas tatushchascha cha pranena mukhyena patih prajanam Chittasya chitter mana indriyanam patir mahan bhuta gunashayeshaha Ladies, please. Tvam, you, Ishise, actually control Jagataha, of the moving being, Tastushaha, of the being that is dull or stationed in one place, Cha, and Pranena, by the living force, Mukhyena, the origin of all activities, Patihi, master, Prajanam, of all living entities, Chittasya, of the mind, Chittaihi, by the consciousness, Manaha, of the mind, Indriyanam, and of the two kinds of senses, acting and knowledge gathering, Patihi, the master. Mahan, great. Bhuta, of the material elements. Guna, and the qualities of material elements. Ashaya, of desires. Ishaha, the Supreme Master. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Your Lordship, being the origin of all of the life of this material world, is the master and controller of the living entities, both moving and stationary, and you inspire their consciousness. You maintain the mind and the acting and knowledge-acquiring senses, and therefore you are the great controller of all the material elements and their qualities, and you are the controller of all desires. Purport. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that the original source of everything is life. Brahma was instructed by the Supreme Life, Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Living Entity, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanash Chetananam. And Brahma is also a living entity, but the original source of Brahma is Krishna. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 7, Mattaf parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. O Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Krishna is the original source of Brahma, who is the original source of the universe. Brahma is a representative of Krishna, and therefore all the qualities and activities of Krishna are also present in Lord Brahma. Text 30. My dear Lord, by your form as the Vedas personified, and through knowledge relating to the activities of all the Yajnik Brahmanas, you spread the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of the 7 kinds of sacrifices headed by Agnishtoma. Indeed, you inspire the Yajnik Brahmanas to perform the rituals mentioned in the 3 Vedas. By the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul of all living entities, being the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul of all living entities, you are beginningless, endless, and omniscient, beyond the limits of time and space. The Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, this is purport, the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, the knowledge thereof, and the person who agrees to perform them are inspired by the Supreme Soul. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Mata Smritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha. From the Lord come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The Supreme Soul is situated in everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati. And when one is advanced in Vedic knowledge, the Super Soul gives him directions. Acting as Super Soul, the Lord gives inspiration to a suitable person to perform the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. In this connection, 4 classes of priests known as Ritvik are required. They are mentioned as Hota, Advaryu, Brahma, and Udgata. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is Hiranyakashipu speaking. Lord Brahma has arrived. He sprinkled celestial or transcendental water on him from his water pot, and Hiranyakashipu's entire body has become fully rejuvenated and strong and extremely powerful. And now it's his turn, Hiranyakashipu's turn, to seek the blessings for which he's been performing this very difficult austerity. According to proper, etiquette before seeking a blessing from someone who's very powerful and respectful within the universe. For that matter, any superior, it is important to glorify them first. Of course, a perverted expression of this is we tend to flatter someone, and then when we flatter them, the first thing they will say is, "What do you want?" Because flattery is a way by which we convey, I need something, so I'm flattering you. And some flattery is that we exaggerate certain things, or we say it even if we don't mean it somehow. It's flattery. But that is there because there is the original method. The original method is that mercy has to descend from a higher source to a lower, vessel. And what allows for that mercy to flow is the humility in the seeker. And an expression of that humility is to glorify the source of that mercy. Because the natural tendency with the conditioned person is to always glorify oneself. And it is, whether it's a material sense or even in a not a very mature state of one's spiritual development, one has the tendency to glorify oneself. I hope I have my memory clear because I don't want to kill the story. But there is an instance in the Mahabharata where Yudhishthira asks Arjuna to lay his Gandiva down. And Arjuna had this amazing Kshatriya spirit that if ever anyone said, just keep your Gandiva aside, it basically means you're not man enough. Like in India, there is a saying, if you tell a man, I think you should put on some bangles, it's very insulting to a man. It means you're not man enough. So when you sing to Arjuna, put down this Gandiva, it means, you're not the Kshatriya. And for a Kshatriya, insult is worse than death, right? Krishna is inciting the same thing in Arjuna. Klaibhyam mas magam partha. The worst thing to tell a Kshatriya is you're a eunuch. You're not a man. You're not man enough. So when I forget the instance why Yudhishthira said, but he said like that to Arjuna. It did not come to give him cover because Yudhishthira Maharaj was hurt or pierced with arrows and said, you couldn't do this, give up your Gandiva. And Arjuna had taken a vow that anyone who tells him, give up your Gandiva, he will kill that person. And the Kshatriya vows are very serious matters. So Arjuna was in a severe dilemma. My older brother Yudhishthira Maharaj is worshipable. Now I have also made this promise. What to do? So then he went to Krishna. Now he said, I'm going to give up my life. And Krishna intervenes every time Arjuna does something like that. And so Krishna told Arjuna, what you should do is, I don't want to kill it. He says something, you have to go and, Arjuna said that this is an offense, that if I have to kill my older brother, it's a great offense. What do I have to do? He said, well, you have to go and glorify Yudhishthira Maharaj as an atonement to your wanting to kill Yudhishthira. You have to go glorify him. That's the way you counteract that. And he said, all right, I can glorify Yudhishthira Maharaj, but I also have to atone for wanting to kill him. So in addition to glorifying him, how do I humble myself? So Krishna told him, you glorify yourself in front of him. That is the way you insult yourself. Because if you glorify yourself in the presence of your superior, that's an insult to yourself. So you should go insult yourself like that. So it's not proper etiquette to speak about oneself and one's own glories. And we have to search hard once in a while to find those glories, especially in the presence of a superior or a spiritual master. So here Hiranyakashipu, who's familiar with proper etiquette, is glorifying Lord Brahma. Now, he's calling Lord Brahma the origin of the entire material world. He's the master and controller of all the living entities, of both moving and non-moving. He's the one who inspires their consciousness. He maintains their mind, and he maintains how they will use their knowledge, acquiring senses, and therefore is the greatest controller of all the material elements and qualities, and is the controller of their desires. Now, in one sense, these are factual. Lord Brahma is as powerful because he is the supreme entity within this material world. Now, something that we can appreciate is depending upon the extent of a person's faith or understanding of truth, because faith and understanding of truth go together. To that degree, they can access truth. Depending on one's faith, one has access to truth, and vice versa. To the extent they have understanding of the truth, to that extent their faith is inspired. So here, Hiranyakashipu is definitely become, in one sense you can say purified, although that's a wrong word. He is elevated by his austerity that he's been performing. So Lord Brahma had to personally come. It's not like some other person showed up or a demigod showed up and said, all right, Hiranyakashipu, what would you like? He was propitiating, he was appealing to Lord Brahma, the supreme most being in the universe. And Lord Brahma came. So he's definitely qualified in the sense of his austerity. He's qualified. That's why Lord Brahma came. And of course the other demigods were uncomfortable. It was too hot for them by the power of his austerity. And so he can only see up to that range. He can only see up to Lord Brahma. He is not able to see beyond Lord Brahma. He is not able to see that Lord Brahma is inspired and empowered by Lord Vishnu. So when he says these things, they are correct, and they're also not correct fully at the same time. They're not the complete truth. So Lord Brahma is all of these. But Lord Brahma understands that he derives all his powers from Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the original, here Prabhupada quotes, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. So as aspiring or practicing devotees, we are meant to learn and acknowledge and I guess realize that there are instruments of Krishna and then there is Krishna. And the instruments are as venerable and worshipable as the Lord himself. But we don't see the instrument separate from the source. We don't see the instruments as individual or independent sources in and of themselves. We see them together. Like once Srila Prabhupada was asked, Srila Prabhupada, when I'm chanting japa, should I think of Krishna or should I think of the spiritual master? And Srila Prabhupada's answer was, how can you think of one without the other? So it's an integrated or synthetic view that the instruments and the source are together. So we say in disciplic succession, which means that that Krishna is the source of mercy, and all members of the disciplic succession are carriers of that mercy. And they are empowered to bring Krishna's mercy unto us. And that connection for us is that immediate member of the disciplic succession. So if we were to glorify or appreciate that particular individual who's connecting us to the disciplic succession without seeing Krishna, then it's not a proper view. So that's one end of I would say that's one boundary. This beyond that is not right. And the other boundary is, it's all Krishna and no one in between. It's between me and Krishna after all, and others don't really matter. That's the other end of that extreme. And so our teaching is that we find the right in the center of things, or in between these two boundaries, that we use the phrase Guru and Krishna, or the phrase that Krishna and Krishna's devotees, or the disciplic succession. That does not obviate or remove the need for appreciating or glorifying the particular devotee or devotees who are helping us. So our appreciation must be in context to they, or any one of they, being proper instruments of Krishna. This is a proper understanding. I am very grateful to you for being an instrument of Krishna in my life. Whether they are helping us in a way that we like, whether they are helping us in a way that we don't like. But they are still instruments of Krishna. Because ultimately it is Krishna who is addressing our hearts. Shrunvatam svakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidhunoti suhrat sutam. So while he removes the undesirables from our hearts, he is also the person who's our best friend. Suhrid satam. Suhrid means the person who's very concerned about our welfare. That his heart is connected to our heart. He is very concerned. So he finds different instruments for us. Some that we like what they say and do for us, and some we don't like what they say and do for us. And depending upon our realization of our relationship with Krishna, the tendency is to see sometimes the instruments separate from Krishna. And so, along with it, the consequence of whatever comes from seeing something disconnected from Krishna. We know the definition that whenever we see anything disconnected from Krishna, it is called Maya. That which we don't see connected to Krishna. Now it's easier said than done. So it's very easy for me to say it. In my own life, definitely, like right now and in the past, there have been situations where it's not so clear that particular individual or set of individuals are nothing but Krishna's instruments to throw some light on the situation or the condition of my heart. I mean, it's not always that Krishna is doing everything for me. I'm not the center of existence. But Krishna is addressing multiple things and multiple persons at the same time. He has that capacity. But my concern is, in one sense, about myself or any one of us. Right? Because I cannot be concerned about someone else without being concerned for my own self. Because I don't have the capacity to do something for someone else without doing something for myself. For example, if someone needs help, if I myself I'm not physically, mentally and spiritually capable, I can't help. If someone is having difficulty, let's say, in 3 feet of water or 4 feet, I don't mind jumping in because I know my feet will touch the ground and I can somehow. But if they're struggling in 9 feet of water, although I want to help, I may not be able to help. I can't. I have to know what my capacity is unless I become well trained to be able to, what's that called? Tread in 9 feet of water. Because I know how to tread in 9 feet of water, I may not jump into the ocean to help someone. Because that's not for me, I guess. So I have to address for myself. So each one of us has that before helping or while helping to take care of one's own capacity or extent of ability. So the tendency is that with each experience, each progressive experience in life, to see Krishna behind all circumstances gets more and more, in one sense easier, in another sense difficult. Easier because realization is to develop that view of seeing Krishna's hand in everything. But sometimes in the heat of the moment or that very immediate circumstance, you can't see Krishna's hand so easily. It also depends on one's, spiritual openness at that point. How well or not well one is doing in one's hearing and chanting practices. So it's important that before responding to a circumstance, that one take the necessary time and energy to as we say, reset, I think is a word I've heard, to re-look at things differently from a position of strength than from a position of weakness. So here in this case, all this to come to the point that Hiranyakashipu can only see up to Lord Brahma. And in one sense, he's only interested up to that level. Because beyond that level, in his mind, he's preparing to kill Vishnu. He gave all these beautiful class to his family. In the next verse, he's talking about the super soul inspiring the Brahmins to perform Vedic yagyas. But he's thinking Lord Brahma is the super soul. Because Lord Brahma is very powerful. In one sense, he is omniscient. Yet, that omniscience has a different flavor than Paramatma's omniscience. But for Hiranyakashipu, that's the limit of his understanding. And he's thinking, oh Lord Brahma, you are the super soul. You are the personality from whom the Vedas come. So he missed the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, I guess. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. That even Brahma's knowledge is inspired by Vishnu. So Prabhupada says, Matta Parataram na anyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. That there is no source higher or greater than I. And our moving through our spiritual life is to progressively come to that understanding that Krishna is the source and origin of everything. It starts from practical things around us. Then it goes deeper where our otherwise vision did not go. We don't consider so easily how Krishna is the source of everything. And the development of spiritual life is to get a keener and a more or a larger appreciation of Krishna and Krishna's presence and ability across all dimensions of existence. So I'm not getting into the 4 kinds of Brahmins who do yagyas, because I don't know except the 4 names. I know a little bit of who does what, but that's about where my knowledge ends. So I want to see if there are any questions or comments. Very good. Whoa. So please help me, because I understand that now we have a Michael, a Mike, a Mikey, and a Marky.
Hare Krishna.
You're Mike. Okay. This is Mikey. He said, I'm Mike. You're saying he's Mikey. Identity crisis. So go ahead. I'll repeat the question just for the sake of
Hare
it.
Krishna.
Does the Guru know what we need? Yeah. Does the spiritual master know from Krishna or from his own knowledge? So let's say the spiritual master is traveling by car, and the disciple is 10,000 miles in another continent. Does the spiritual master get a little message? Did you know your disciple is eating the 7th gulab jamun right now? Call him and stop him. Is it? No, it's not. It's not like that. It's not like that. There is not such a distinction between Guru's own knowledge and what Krishna says, because what the Guru knows is what Krishna has inspired. But there is one thing, the Guru is not super soul. It should be clear. The spiritual master is not super soul that is so omniscient that knows exactly what's going on. They have a sense of what's going on because of the relationship. They know certain characteristics of the person or the disciple. They know their tendencies. They know their strengths and weaknesses. They know the person. But they can't say at that moment, I know what's going on in your heart. They may have an idea about it. And at that moment, Krishna can decide how much he wants to reveal to either of them, because he may have a purpose. And each person is trying to understand Krishna. Now the spiritual master, by dint of that kind of service, is said to be a transparent instrument. So he or whoever is the spiritual master, they are concerned, what is Krishna trying to convey? That concern is such a stark thing for them that they tend to understand a few things. But it doesn't mean that they are omniscient and they know. Whatever Krishna reveals, that's what they will convey. To know that there is Krishna in every... Does it take a level of sattva guna? Well, sattva guna is the pre-qualification to be able to appreciate anything. It's called it's a prerequisite. If I have to enter college, I need a prerequisite. I need to know certain amount of algebra, whatever. It's a prerequisite. Similarly, mode of goodness is a prerequisite. And as we are in this material world, mode of goodness is the medium by which we see and appreciate certain things. Although the transcendence is what is necessary. we call transcendence as the mood of service. And what distinguishes, let's say, mode of goodness versus transcendence is in the mode of goodness, one tends to appreciate certain things. Krishna's wonderful quality of making the rose bloom so beautifully and so fragrant and etc. And the mode of service helps you go beyond the appreciation to know how to use it in Krishna's service. So it goes from appreciation to service. So the bare minimum required is mode of goodness, of course. Because if one is influenced by passion, then although one may appreciate it, that this is Krishna's, the tendency is to enjoy it for oneself. Is that right? Okay. Bhaktaluk, what happened to the microphone? Now working? They could not find it. No, the mic's right there. It's working. I used it yesterday. The wireless transmitter is not on. But go ahead, Bhaktaluk. I'll repeat the question.
And similarly, Hare Krishna, whose responsibility is it to determine the capacity of others?
As a conditioned soul, we tend to overestimate our capacity and underestimate another's capacity. And whose responsibility is it to assess one's own capacity or anyone's capacity?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That was the second part.
Right.
Whose responsibility is it to assess others' capacity?
Others' capacity.
Yeah, but the first part was how can one know for himself or herself what is his or her own capacity?
So one method is called trial and error. I had a person who said a very nice statement which I liked. He said, I lived my life on the basis of trial and error. All my errors ended up in trials. Not that kind of trial and error, but trial and error means you judge how far, how much what one capacity is. For example, let's say we have learned to chant 16 rounds. Not all of us started off that way. Capacity was something that progressively developed. It can also be regressive. But let's just talk about progressive because it's a nice thing. It's a Monday morning. We don't want to start the week badly or whatever. Okay. It's progressive. We may have started with 1 or 2 or 4 or 8 or something. There was a time when someone said chant 1 round and we thought, where do I have 10 minutes? Now we chant 16 rounds. And our 16 rounds, although in quantity is there, in quality there's room for capacity. So another is practice. A third is someone else may have an assessment of us because they know us. Now capacity is not at least I've come to understand, being in the service that I've done, I guess, so far, without qualifying whether it's done well or not, just the service I have done, is that capacity is highly variant. It varies by season, Of course, there are environmental factors. It varies by season, it varies by association, it varies by internal environment, the mind, or whatever is happening at that moment. In the positive side or negative side. For example, someone may not feel any capacity to do something. Let's say the spiritual master comes and says, what a wonderful bhakta or bhaktin, amazing, and they shoot up. Or they're doing very well and the spiritual master says, horrible service, they may shoot down. So there are those factors. So there are many factors that are operating simultaneously. It's not always easy to discern which is the factor that's, dampening or fueling one's capacity. Body, etc. So in general, you can't take a one point in time reading. It has to be a more, broader in time scale. This is my understanding. I could be way off, but this is my understanding. So you have to have a reading across a time scale. You have to see a person over time to say, okay, this is something's not okay there, or that this is the limit at this point in time that their capacity is. Unless there is some other factor, spiritual factor that, or physical, or whatever that thing is, if that moves, things can change. I would add to your statement, we have a tendency to overestimate our capacity and underestimate the others. One tendency. So to make it full and colorful. We also have the tendency to underestimate our capacity sometimes and overestimate someone else's. So whenever service comes to us, we say, I can't do, but Prabhu, you can do. We pass it, whatever, or some balance in between. But that's my understanding so far. There are many factors. Weather changes and things change for people. Happens. Acharya, is there any question on this side? Okay, I didn't turn my head this side. No.
Thank you, Guru. I was wondering, under any circumstances...
Under any circumstances?
If there are any circumstances, you could elaborate. Is there scope for disagreeing with the spiritual master?
It's very interesting you asked this question. Depends on the disciple in one sense. Depends on the disciple's development of relationship with the spiritual master. And depends on one's own realization of that relationship to disagree or not. It's risky, very risky, but there is room for it. But the disciple must know how to express that disagreement. Now, for me, it's a very difficult thing. I'm speaking personally. It's very difficult for me. Even if internally I feel, I don't agree, I can't say it. That's something it's interesting you asked, because just this morning or early in the morning, I had this, that I find it difficult to express it. And that's something I have to learn about myself. But I also feel that I may not be equipped to take that kind of a risk. Now, from the spiritual master's side, because there is compassion, it's not that be careful if you speak like that, I'll curse you, or it's not like that. But one can't play with that risk too much, is my feeling. I'm sure someone else will have a different view or take on it. I feel. Now, with the relationship, One can say, I feel differently. There are instances in our scripture where one says, not so much because they don't want to disagree, but they want to go beyond the impediment. Even after Arjuna says Karpanya dosha pahata svabhava, he still disagrees with Krishna all the way up to 6th chapter. But his disagreement is more in terms of asking, can you help me go beyond this? Versus the disagreement that I know better. So one can see there's no rule that the spiritual master disciple have to see the same way. There's no rule like that. But one should be careful to say, I see differently. Like, what is your qualification in spiritual life to see things differently? You have some sense, no doubt. It's not like we are so that we don't have any knowledge of certain things. We may be right or correct, or however we see, our within the frame of our understanding, we may have a particular, understanding of things. And the spiritual master's frame of reference may be something different. That's one. Second, as I answered Mike, the spiritual master is not the super soul. He may not have certain information that we may have. Let's say, let's take a case of a spiritual master, let's say, who visits once in a while, if not very regularly, mostly once in a while. And some other person who's taking care of the disciples may be interacting with a particular disciple or devotee every day regularly. Now when the disciple meets the spiritual master, the person in between, I think we call mentor, whoever, bhakta leader, someone, may have a different view of that person. The details the spiritual master may not know. But their frame of reference could be different. And it's not wrong. So there can be disagreement in that sense. Sure.
Chinese, I was just wondering your question. It's in the case that the spiritual master has not deviated. That wasn't your question, right? It was assuming he's in very good spiritual standing. The disciple also. Okay, I just wondered.
Carlos?
Regarding what Acharya Nishta said, is my personal opinion, I don't know, that depending on how we address those disagreements, the terms we validate or invalidate our point. Probably we are right, and in the way we address it, we validate or invalidate it. Karl Marx used to say that the dialogue begins in the ideological disagreements. I don't know if that matches with our relationship with our spiritual master.
I don't know Karl Marx so much, so I don't. But from what I've understood, that there is always room for conversation, especially in the modern age or Kali Yuga. There's always room for conversation, thankfully. But I'm speaking personally. I find difficult taking that room too much. It's my own. But I've seen persons speak and say, and without disagreement is not the issue, but the disagreement shouldn't dent or put a dent in the relationship.
Wouldn't that enrich the relationship with the spiritual master being not in disagreement, but open to a dialogue, like I see this in a different way.
Yeah, sure. So you want to add something?
One comment I had was, like you said, there is always room for dialogue, and one thing I'm realizing in my own journey, in my relationship with my spiritual master is, there is some amount of taking responsibility for my decisions, and I think there is a certain growing up in the relationship. I mean, my relationship earlier was I would go with a question and I would get ABC, do ABC. But now I see that I don't get such direct, instructions or you have to do this. It's more of, well, these are the options. And so the way I'm seeing it is there is a growing up in the relationship, and the spiritual master does encourage me to own my decisions and take the consequences of what, I mean, I'm talking about the details. I'm not talking about the principles. I'm talking about the details of that, daily life brings us to. And so, so I think that's important in the sense, I mean, I'm seeing that the hard part for me is, suppose I want to say, the spiritual master indicates A and I want to do B. So there is an element of integrity that comes up after a certain point, and I'm realizing, what do I choose? Okay, I want to be in integrity, and I don't want to say yes when I mean no. So I think that's a point in the relationship where I've come to a point where I want to be honest with myself too, and I know you're indicating A, but I'm sensing B. And the response is fine. I mean, whatever. And so for me to own the decision and take responsibility for it, and whatever consequences come from it, in a way, and like you said, not putting a dent, not blaming the other person, but really owning it as an adult, I think that's, I just wanted to bring that up because I'm going through that in my relationship too, there's a certain point of...
Yeah, me too. That's why answering these questions has been a little tough for me. Not so much that disagreement, but there's something that I've been working on, and it's. Okay, take away the mic from him. No, speak it.
There's obviously a spectrum of surrender,
Sure,
and understanding of the spiritual master, and that will influence our way of interacting. But I was remembering, I'm just looking at Dhruva Maharaj's statement to Narada Muni, when Narada Muni is instructing him, and these are very good instructions. It doesn't touch my heart.
right.
And Prabhupada writes in the purport that Narada Muni is appreciating that he frankly just told this. So the disagreement may not be so much as, like you were saying, the subjective vision is different. Obviously, we would hope that the subjective vision is different. But because one's consciousness is in a lower subjective position, and we just may not be able to resonate because of that, and frankly admitting that so that we may perhaps receive another sort of direction that can help us uplift. And it's not, for me, it doesn't seem like so much of a disagreement as such.
Right.
It's just like a heart situation. And my heart isn't.
Right, I think the question was about disagreement, and so I didn't address. There's a particular disagreement where Bali Maharaj does not agree with Shukracharya, although Shukracharya's instructions are all valid religiously speaking. Yet he disagreed in a way with so much weight in those disagreements versus, hey, you didn't say anything about bhakti, I reject you. He was so careful. And even for that, there are consequences. Although he was right, there are consequences Bali Maharaj had to face. So I was just thinking of that. I was going to say something. Yeah, in general, I feel, in general, that we hear so much about offenses that in one sense, it's a good thing. In one sense, we are always sort of in this heightened, guarded state. I don't want to commit an offense. Sometimes that stops one from being fully expressive, because that guard is actually healthy. It also can cause some impediment in being fully open. So that's another thing that operates. Oh, I can't say because what if I offend? Or I find that as difficult. Jitendra Prabhu, you have something to say? Sure. It's a loner.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, you talked about various variants in our capabilities of performing our service.
I was not thinking of you, because for you, you're all weather, it doesn't matter. All weather, all states of body, mind, it just not relevant for you.
Well, and I was thinking, Srila Prabhupada he would say, this chanting, it only take you 2.5 hours a day, no problem. But I find sometimes that it's taken me a lot longer. I remember there was this one devotee from St. Louis, older fellow, back to Jesse, and he'd be sitting in the lobby and he'd chant his rounds, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, real slow but very distinct, every syllable. And then you hear other devotees and yourself maybe, or so I go, wow, is this, are they hearing every syllable like back to Jesse? And I'm speaking for myself too, I'm thinking, well, it used to take me about 10 minutes around, but I found it, sometimes it'll take me up to like 15 minutes around. So then I'm thinking, well, this comes into 4 hours instead of 2.5. So if Prabhupada was here, I might ask him, can I just chant for 2.5 hours? And then would that be adequate, So I'm a little confused over that.
Some chant 16 throughout the day.
Yeah.
You understand? For some it takes 24, sometimes more than 24 hours to chant 16 rounds. It happens.
What if there's 24 hours in a day? What if a person it takes them more than 24 to chant a 16?
That's right.
And Prabhupada says you must make it up the next day.
Correct.
I'm thinking I'm going to have to make
Most
it up in my
people use
next
that
lifetime.
concession.
I'm thinking I'm going to have to make it up in my next lifetime. Certain things I'm not capable of, So, I mean, it's an individual experience.
Jayananda Prabhu,
Yes.
he was chanting his 16 rounds. The other devotees were chanting 16 rounds. He would wake up before they all wake up, but they would be done with their rounds and gone, and he would still be in the temple room chanting, and he would chant, I don't know, like Bhakta Jesse, but all the syllables properly and all that. And after many months, he had a doubt. He said, what's wrong? What am I doing wrong? I seem to chant at the same pace as all the devotees, but it takes double the time for me. What's wrong? What's wrong? So he asked one of the devotees. So they asked him, so tell me, how do you chant? He said, this is the pace I chant in. They said, show me on the beads. So he showed them, and then they realized that Jayananda Prabhu was thinking that you go from one side of all the way back, and then when you come back all the way, that is one round. So effectively he was chanting 32 every day, thinking, I'm only chanting 16. They're all so fast. What's wrong with me?
Yeah, I remember hearing that. But thank you.
Anyway, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.